Hello all, welcome back to my channel. In this tutorial, we'll continue to answer these questions in Python. The previous tutorial, we solved them in R, but here we are going to solve these questions in Python, but using RStudio. The reason why I want to solve these questions in RStudio is just to highlight the fact that we can use RStudio also for coding Python scripts. One of my subscriber, Ravindranath, was struggling to install Anaconda on his machine, but he was able to successfully install RStudio. So since he was struggling to execute Python script on his laptop because of unable to install Anaconda, I just want to help him and people with similar problems that Ravindranath has faced of Anaconda installation. If you have RStudio, you can continue learning R. At the same time, you can also continue learning Python. So how do we execute Python script in R? This is what we are going to learn in this tutorial. And at the same time, we'll also be solving these problems. All right, to run a Python script in R, all that we have to do is under the file menu, we have this plus icon here. If you click on the drop down here, by default, it is R script. So here we have few other options. So here, if we just select Python script here. So once we click on Python script, now this one is going to be completely Python. So whatever we type here is going to be Python code here. Let's just give it a try. Import numpy as np. Now if I click on the run button, here if you see things have changed. All of a sudden reticulate Python 3.8.5 and now import numpy as np. So even the console has changed, isn't it? It has now become a typical Python console. All right, we may not require numpy here. Let's try to solve these problems. So let me just copy these questions. All right, I have already pasted all the questions here. And let me just change this to a proper list now. All right, now write a function to calculate the number of occurrences of a particular string in a list or array of string. So this is a list of string. Now, if I have to convert it to a lowercase, I cannot do it for a string st dot. There is no such operation called st dot lower. However, we have it for each character. Now, if I execute this line first, st, and now if I do something like st, and if I select the second element here, so st1, and if I now just type dot lower, and now if I click on the run button here, it actually becomes small case. If you observed, I can also do something like this. I put a double quote and I type hello dot lower, and if I click on the run button, all the characters get converted to lowercase. So this is how we can convert the capitals to lowercase. Similarly, we also have an option here. If I do something like how are you dot, I also can use the upper method here and it will convert everything to uppercase. And similarly, if I do something like how are you doing, and if I convert to capitalize, it would just convert the first letter as capital. So here the first letter is capitalized and everything else is converted to small letter. So this is what we can use here. But since we have everything in a list and list does not have that method, so if I just type st.lower, it does not exist. It says list object has no attribute lower. So what can we do here? We can run a for loop for the same. We can use a for loop here. So for, say, each of the words wd in st, and if I type wd dot lower and assign it to, let me create an empty list here, st underscore lower equal to empty list. So wd dot lower, whenever I'm reading word by word from this list and I'm converting it to a lowercase, let me assign it to temp, and then let me append the list and include this particular word. So st underscore lower dot append, and I pass the temp variable inside the parenthesis. So once I execute this line, click on the run button, and now if I type st underscore lower, or if I just double click on this and execute it, it would give me everything in small case. Now if I want to count number of words, I can use the st underscore lower dot count high. If I click on the run button, it would give me 4. So this is how we can count the number of occurrences of a particular string in Python. Now we have to create a function here. So to create a function, the keyword used is def and then dot count, and inside the bracket I will be passing the list, and then I will also be passing the word that I want to count. So it would be something like user choice, and here I just need to pass this entire code inside the function, and I have to tab them. So st lower for word in st, so this is what we are passing inside. So whatever parameter we have passed here is exactly we are trying to loop into loop. Then temp is just a temporary variable where we are converting everything to lowercase, and then empty list is getting appended here by adding each of these lowercase words into it. Finally, we are doing the count here. So in fact, when we do this, we can just return this. Return st underscore lower dot count, and here we will not be passing high here. Here we'll be passing user choice. Right now, if we execute this function here, click on the run button. All right, now if I just have to check for it, dot count, and inside I'll be passing st, which is nothing but this particular variable which has all the words, some of them capital, some of them small. And then if I just want to check how many words high are there, click on the run button and it would say 4. However, we might have the same problem here. If we have a capital H here, if I click on the run button, it would say 0 because we have not converted this to a small case. So all that we have to do is, before we use this over here, we just have to convert it to a small case. And how do we do that? We can just type user choice dot lower. So that is enough for us, because when we are returning it, we just have to count the number of words that the user has entered, straight away convert it to a lower case, and then count. So if I just pass user choice dot lower here, all that I'm doing is, so even if he's entering capital H, capital I, when we are counting, what are we trying to count here? We are counting the number of words that are placed in the bracket. So what is the word that is placed in the bracket? It is capital H, capital I, and then you're converting to lower. It becomes small h, small I. So eventually you're counting the small h and I. And now once I execute this function once again, let me do a total count here. Now once again it gives me the correct answer as 4. So this is how we create a function to count the number of occurrences of a particular word in a list, irrespective of how it is entered, with caps lock or no caps lock. All right, going to the next one. Generate random names of 10 people with first name and last name. To generate random names of people, we need to import a library called names. Import names. Just in case you do not have this library installed, you have to go to Anaconda prompt. And once you go to Anaconda prompt, you have to type pip install names. So this is how we install new libraries in Python. Just like we do the install.packages in R, we have to use pip install names in the command line in Anaconda prompt. And once I click on the enter button, the names library gets installed. Since I already have it, it is giving me this message, requirement already satisfied. And once you already have it installed, let's go back and import names. Click on the run button. So names is imported now. And here, if we type something like this, names dot get first name, and the only thing inside the bracket is gender, male or female. So let us leave that blank for now. If I just pass get first name, and if I click on the run button, it gives me a proper first name. Now if I just execute this line all over again, it gives me another name. These are all random names generated which make sense. It is not just something like XYZ. It's something which genuinely exists. So Lydia, and once I execute this all over again. Similarly, if I just type get last name, it will give me the last names. And similarly, if I execute get full name, it will give me the first name as well as the last name randomly executed. So this is how we can execute or create random names in Python using the names library. So what is the question here? Generate random names of 10 people. So to generate random names of 10 people, we can use the for loop once again here. For I in 10, what we can do here is we have a full name. We have a blank list of full names. And once we have this names generated, let us put it in some temp variable and then full name dot append this temp variable. So like that, we get all these 10 names generated, which will get stored in the list, full name list. So let me execute all these lines, click on the run button. And now if I just check for full name, for I in range 10. So it is going to call this for loop 10 times. And now if I execute these lines, and if I just execute full name here, it will give me randomly generated 10 names. That's how we generate random names in Python. So I tried to club the question 2 and question 3 into one single framework here, coding solution here, where we're just generating random strings here, random names, which in this case, they are proper names here. All right, now instead of this question number 3, let me delete it. Let us try to tweak this second question itself and try to generate somewhere close to 100 random names with just these 10 first names and the 10 last names. We have an empty list of first names and we have an empty list of last names. Now we are going to loop through the for loop 10 times, and we have temp first, where we get the first name here, get first name, and temp last, that would give us the names dot get last name, right? And now we'll be appending first name with temp first. Let me create a new line here so that it becomes easier to understand what's going on. And then last name dot append temp last. Now let me just execute this command. And now if I just type first name, I have these first names here. And similarly, if I just type last name, I have all these last names here. Now what I'm trying to do is I would try to generate somewhere close to 100 names from this 10 first names and the 10 last names, which would mean if I call Jean, I hope I pronounce it correctly, Jean or Jeannie, Jeannie could have a last name as Wills, and Jeannie could also have a last name as Waters. So Jeannie Wills is one name, Jeannie Waters is another name, Jeannie Phillips is another name, Walter Oquendo is one name, Walter Bell is another name. So we'll try to generate names in such a way that the combination of first and last name is unique. We want to generate at least 100 of them. So let me run a for loop here. For I in range 100. Now I want to generate 100 of them. And let me put the full name variable as blank list. I'm going to append this one by one. So first I'll do is temp1 would be a randomly generated name from first name. So for that we'll have to import a library called random. So once we import this random library, we can use the random library here, and in this we have an option of selecting choice. So inside choice we would be passing the first name here. So what it would do is, so from this first name list, which has got 10 names here, it would randomly pick one of them whenever this for loop is executed, and that will be assigned to temp1. Similarly, temp2 will be random.choice last name. So this would do something similar. It would randomly pick one of these names from these 10 names and then assign it to temp2 variable. And now we are going to append the full name here, full name dot append. Now here when we are appending, we are going to append the names together, and we can do that using temp1 and temp2 this way with a comma separated. So once we execute this, let me just execute this first and click on the run button. So it has got completely executed. Now if I look at the, I'm sorry, so here, yeah, append does not take two elements. So what we have to do here is, can we pass it in the form of a tuple? So if I pass it in the form of a tuple here, and now if I execute the for loop all over again, and now if I check for full name, now full name has all these names separated by a comma. So we have to pass them in tuple because append can only take one parameter inside. And now since we have passed it in a tuple, this entire thing becomes one parameter. First name comma last name now becomes one parameter inside the append function, and full name gets appended accordingly. So we have Lynn, Aqueda, Tresio. So these are all first name followed by the last name. So like that we have 100 of them. But the problem here is, since it randomly picks temp1 and temp2, there is a possibility that during one of its iterations, it would pick the first name and the last name that already existed. So we could have some repetition here. For example, if you see Lynn Oquendo was already called once, and Lynn Oquendo is once again called. So there could be similar repetitions for many such names. So what we can do here is, we have to put an if condition here. If, now just to make it look better, what we can do is we can just create another variable temp3, and this is nothing but you're pasting temp1 and temp2. You're pasting temp1 and temp2 with a plus sign here. So let me just give an example of how it looks like, so that becomes easier for you to understand. Here first name, if I call first name, the first name here, it is this, and if I call the last name 1, it is Wills. So if I type something like this, first name 1 plus last name 1, so they appear together without a space. So what I can do here is, I can do something like plus a space here and another plus here. So now what would happen, so here if I just type a space here and another plus, now we have Walter Wills as a single name with a space in between. So this is what we are creating here. All right, and now what I'm going to ask is, if temp3 not in full name, if this name that has been generated is not existing in this full name list, only then append this particular list. So here I'll have to replace this with temp3. So what I'm doing overall, let me just give a summary here. The first name I'm randomly picking from those 10 names. The last name also I'm randomly picking from those 10 names. So I have them assigned to temp1 and temp2 variable. And now in temp3, I'm just concatenating them. First name space last name. And this is one way of concatenating in Python using the plus operator. If you use a plus operator for numbers, it will get added. If you use a plus operator for strings in Python, it will get concatenated. So this is what we have seen here, right? And now what I'm saying is, if this name after concatenation does not exist in full name list, only then append it. So this name does not exist, add it to the full name list. So Walter Wills does not exist in this full name list, then append it. So full name will now have Walter Wills as one of the names. So it will get appended only if this if condition is satisfied. All right. Now, if I execute this all over again, click on the run button. I have this executed. Now, if I print full name, it gives me all these names here, right? But do you think I would be having 100 such names? Let's check that as well. Length of full name. If I click on the run button, it just gives me 59 of them. So though there were 100 iterations, but many times what has happened is, when it picked a random first name and a random last name, During many iterations, this combination already was part of full name. That's why it did not get appended all over again. So it has happened almost 41 times. That is why even though we ran this iteration for 100 times, we only got a total of 59 unique names. Alright, I hope you found this tutorial useful. Though this tutorial has been a little lengthy, string operations are little complex compared to numeric operations. I just wanted to let you know that there are a few functions and few libraries available for us to generate random names, and then how can we use some string functions to change or manipulate a few strings. Alright, this is what I had to share in this tutorial. If you have any doubts, questions, suggestions, feedback, please do post them in the comment section. If you have not yet subscribed to my channel, please do subscribe to my channel so that you can get an immediate update as and when I upload new tutorials. See you in the next tutorial. Thank you very much.